we've got a chapter we've been dying to get for a long time. Yes, we get more Luffy, more Loki, but shockingly, we even get Rox the XEBEC, the legendary leader of arguably the strongest pirate crew in history, the Rox Pirates, making an appearance, and it is ridiculously hype, not to mention the God's Knights making their move and directly attacking the Straw Hats. So make sure to stay tuned for this one. Chill the parking within and smash that like button if you enjoy watching One Piece reviews like this one on the channel and want to keep them coming. Make this the video you join the Nakam if you haven't by subscribing and hitting that notification bell so you don't miss future One Piece reviews and updates. And now without further ado, let's jump into it, spoilers and all. So this chapter is called Fire at the Second Forest District on Branch Route 8. We do get a kind of resolution to Yamato helping Ulti and Page 1 in this week's cover story. She already fought, and now this one is dedicated to Yamato destroying the dartboard where Ulti was imprisoned, and Ulti hugs Page 1, who is still chained on the floor, saying Peyton is alive. So a very heartwarming ending, and nice to see Yamato continuing to do good and help people even after the events of Wano. The chapter proper starts with an amazing double page of the underworld. Here Zoro, Sanji, and new giant warrior pirate Goldberg are hunting for meat for Loki. They come across a massive dinosaur, specifically a Brontosaurus called a Groggysaurus, that attacks them. Interestingly enough, Goldberg uses his shield, which has eyes and a mouth, to protect them, and the shield actually breaks the dinosaur's teeth. Crazy enough. That is one powerful shield, and I look forward to learning more about the specifics of the eyes and mouth on this shield, and luckily we do get to learn about that in this chapter. Even if it's just hunting for meat, it's so hyped to see Zoro and Sanji actually use a combo attack against the Groggysaurus, one called Arme de l'air Power Shoot. Sanji sends Zoro flying with a kick towards Groggysaurus, and then Zoro decapitates it. Goldberg, who is actually the cook of the new giant warrior pirate, says there's a hunter cottage nearby with a set of cooking equipment so they can use it to cook the meat. Sanji asks his fellow cook friend why Goldberg's shield can talk, and Goldberg explains the interesting secret. His shield, called Nash, is a homie that became alive during battle when his dad went to fight against Big Mom during the winter solstice 63 years ago. That's a very cool detail, and it makes sense that if Nami can use homie Zeus as a weapon, there could be others out there too. Another small but fascinating reveal in the One Piece world. They return to where Loki is, and Loki explains to everyone that the God's Knights appeared and attacked him. Hiruden asks if Loki had a grudge with them when he went on rampage overseas, and Loki responds, "Don't be stupid. If I went far enough to meet those guys, I would have become king of the world by now." End quote. I love the confidence, and the whole King of the World comment definitely foreshadows the hype events we are about to get in this chapter. Because, as we all know, there was another special pirate who wanted to be king of the world. Sanji proceeds to cook the Groggysaurus, and Luffy begins to eat the meat, which is hilarious. Sanji has to remind him that it's for Loki. It stays comedic as Luffy then forces a piece of meat into Loki's mouth. He tells Loki to eat, but Loki screams, "That's hot," because Luffy did not wait for it to cool down. Despite Luffy trying to help, this comes off as something more akin to torture. Gerd tells him that Loki's wounds are gonna open up again if he does that. As we'll see, Gerd is kind of hoping that happens anyways. A very angry Loki asks, "Were you trying to kill me?" I love how Luffy and Zoro have been simultaneously helping and torturing Loki all this time. Luffy says, "Oh, you are lively again. Anyways, if you don't eat, you are not going to heal." Luffy sees Loki is having trouble swallowing the meat, and so he brings a huge bowl of boiling soup to Loki and ends up spilling it all over him. Loki asks Luffy to stay away from him, while Gerd secretly gives Luffy a thumbs up since she hates Loki. So much to love comedically in this chapter, and with the way it started, looks like Loki has pretty much become a punching bag for Oda. It'll be interesting to see if this pattern continues when he's fully healed. You guys know that I want Loki to become a Straw Hat if possible, and all the Straw Hats have their go-to things, like Zoro being bad with directions or Nami loving treasure. So I wonder if Loki's thing will just be being hurt all the time. Loki is then the one who brings us to a really good part of the chapter. He says, "Didn't think you'd want to see red red hair again that bad. Well, not that I can't understand the admiration for a pirate you met in your childhood, end quote. Let's just appreciate that here the great big villain Loki is sounding very human and even like he's relating to Luffy. Love how Oda keeps subverting his reputation like this. He already feels like a bro and member of the crew to me. Luffy says, that sounds like you had someone like that too, and Loki responds, yeah, I had someone. Makes you regret being a brat at that time. Then we get the epic flashback where a kid Loki is talking to a mysterious pirate. We only see his silhouette and one of his eyes, but it is clear that it is none other than the legendary leader of the Rocks pirates, XEBEC. I don't know if there's a more hype character in all of One Piece. Loki in the flashback says, come on, bring me with you. So he's pretty much the Luffy to XEBEC's Shanks here. But things go very differently as we're about to see. XEBEC says, don't make me repeat myself. I didn't come here to meet brats like you. Loki says, then fight me. XEBEC says, what? And let me just say, there was a question about how strong XEBEC actually was in the One Piece community, since we didn't really see him fight a bunch. Like, was he really that strong, or was he more so the leader of monsters without necessarily just being way stronger than all the people on his crew? Like a less extreme example of Buggy, for instance, but less of a clown, of course. But in this flashback, it definitely looks like he was a monster physically, but even more so morally. In the flashback, we see a Kid Loki lying on the ground, and I imagine a Kid Loki wasn't weak, but here he's left badly wounded with a sword stuck in his body. Edward Newgate, aka Whitebeard himself, reprimands XEBEC for what he did to Loki, who looked up to him clearly. He says using a real blade on a kid, that was too much. XEBEC though says, shut your mouth, Newgate. Imagine talking like that to Whitebeard, but I guess it makes sense for a character as big as XEBEC. And with a larger than life character like XEBEC, you really appreciate every little detail Oda decides to give us about him. And this chapter is probably the most we've ever gotten. Obviously, we only got a snippet of events here, but it seems like it's another story about Loki's bad luck. Here, he is a character foil for Luffy, but whereas Luffy had a mentor, if we want to call them that gave up his arm for him, Loki's mentor would sooner take an arm from him. To be fair, I'd assume XEBEC could have ended Loki if he wanted to, but hurting him so badly is still very harsh, as Whitebeard noted. How can you not feel bad for this guy who's been treated as a curse on the country forever, ostracized, tied up, beaten, and even stabbed by his hero and left for dead? I really hope this is all leading to justice for Loki, and I would wager it is, because that would be very satisfying, and I think Oda is planning to do that with the story. I think his future will look brighter than his past for sure. Here's hoping anyways, but it's also interesting how Oda completely reversed the spoiled and privileged prince trope with Loki. Anyways, we jump back to the present and Loki says in a serious but nostalgic way, I was born in the wrong era. And his horns are like a physical reminder of that in a way all the time, but like I said, I'm hoping he won't keep feeling that way as the story progresses. We then cut to the forest in the Sun World. In another amazing double page, we see the giant warrior pirates fighting against multiple monsters, including Loki, Draugr, ghosts, and so on, in the Great Eric Sval edition. Dory remarks that the Draugrs are like an army. Broggy laughs and says tons of ghosts too, as expected from kids. I love characters like this that can see the humor in these kinds of crazy situations. Scopper jumps over the giants and cuts the Loki monster nightmare in half with his axes. How great is it that he is just a regular part of our chapters these days? He remarks that if the kids knew real Loki, the dream monster would be way stronger than this. This actually is related to something I've been thinking about recently, namely that these nightmare creatures can't be that strong. Like, there has to be a cap, or else this would be like the strongest devil fruit ever. Although Scopper was probably joking and praising Loki at the same time, I'm sure even if the kids knew how strong Loki really was, Scopper could still beat the devil fruit created Loki. That's my hypothesis at least. You can't expect a nightmare brought to life by a devil fruit to be Pirate King level, for example. Scopper then flexes his advanced observation hockey and senses 3 voices that couldn't hide themselves completely from him. As we know, there are 3 God's Knights on the island right now. Scopper says if even Elbaf is not safe, then the world will surely come to an end, end quote. Again, another mention of the end of the world that's definitely been happening a lot recently in One Piece. The firefighter squad tries to extinguish the fire, but they can't control it. Saul defeats Fenrir, but he can't stop the kids and they are about to reach the fire. But suddenly, Jinbei appears inside a river of sea cloud and uses a new attack called Cloud Current Shoulder Throws and puts out the fire. As us Pokemon fans know, Jinbei's water powers are super effective against water, and he is a big help here. As promised in the beginning, we also get the Gods Knights finally presenting themselves in front of the Straw Hats. Colin says Jinbei is very cool and thanks him for saving the kids. Colin explains that even though everyone in the school hates him, kind of reminds me of Loki by the way, he still thinks they're his friends. Very innocent and touching view from Colin here. You can tell he's a good kid. Nami says they will save them and Colin agrees. That's when God's Knight Gunko appears on top of the Sval's figurehead. She's using her arrow powers. Colin, Nami, Usopp, Jinbei, and Brook are in shock to see her. Gunko says to think there are kids other than the ones at school. Colin says, huh, who is this person? And Gunko says, what a lively boy. Probably not the most interesting dialogue that Oda could have left us with before a break next week, but you gotta admit that the chapter as a whole was fire, especially because of the XEBEC stuff. Absolutely loved it. Let me know your thoughts on this one in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, you definitely won't want to miss this one on screen right now about Rocksteady XEBEC and his crew explained. Like and subscribe for more One Piece, and I'll see you in the next one.